Hello, this is Kadous, and this is the organizational design, structure, and change presentation for Amazon. Of the issues faced by Amazon, I've identified negative public opinion of the culture and consistent reports of poor and stressful working conditions. We've all read news articles or heard talk from former employees um, that have mentioned some of these issues. This led to the underperformed dimension being people management because of the reported lack of wellness, safety, and proper motivation, usually because of fear tactics that employees have um, experienced. Some of the current ramifications that Amazon faces because of these issues is that public opinion drops due to the reports of overworking employees imposing strenuous quotas and fear tactics as motivation. This also usually leads to movements and pushes for a service to be canceled and for people to take their business elsewhere. But these findings of overworking employees recently have included specifically drivers and warehouse workers, where they have been pushed so hard that they miss their 30-minute breaks because they know they don't have the time to take them. And they have been forced to relieve themselves in company vehicles and on warehouse floors so that they can meet their quota because they are giving so little time to do the job. And there have also been recent pushes for unionization, which have been shot down. They also experience a revolving door hiring process. This is specifically in warehouse jobs, but also in Amazon drivers, where turnover rates are much higher than other companies in the industry. There was a report that between 2011 and 2017 in some counties in California, that more warehouse workers departed from their jobs each year in counties with an Amazon presence than the total number of warehouse jobs. And that's not a good sign. Because of these ramifications, failure to improve Amazon's people management dimension will result in a continuous decline in public opinion, decline in Amazon's organizational culture, possible lawsuits, increased negative environments, which will become the culture, and a loss of quality of work. The current organizational structure of Amazon is one that is made to push the limits of each employee. And that is specifically done through its feedback system, which can be negative at times, is anonymous, and can be overwhelming for employees, being reviewed so often and compared to so many metrics, regardless of what's happening in their personal lives or whatever else is happening on the floor. It seems to come down only to simple numbers. And the reason for this is because Amazon is different from most other organizations because it attempts to quantify every single aspect of the business for efficiency. Um, the organizational design revolves around meeting the CEO or Jeff Bezos' ever demanding ambitions. The downside here is that efficiency, profits, and innovation, while important, can leave employees or the people, the center of the organization, left out of the equation, and that can lead to a poor conscious culture. The organizational culture, employees' performance metrics are reviewed monthly, as mentioned earlier. They are monitored so closely by the firm's vast employee surveillance arsenal, they are constantly in fear of falling short of their productivity quotas, which makes them fearful of losing their job. And this fear is what motivates them, not a love of what they do sometimes, but simple fear. And that is not a good culture. The effects of that structure, design, and culture on the organizational effectiveness are minimal from my research. Because Amazon consistently performs well in many aspects of the organization, we're always hearing how well it is doing. Its stock is always performing exceptionally well. However, due to poor people management, turnover rate is high. However, that does not seem to be an issue that the company is worried about because they've made a decision to have an extreme pace of work. Amazon has figured out that that's how they maintain ultra high productivity metrics, and they are okay consistently having a high turnover rate if they can produce high productivity. Um, and so for them, they're willing to sacrifice people management for performance metrics. And while that may look good on paper and may satisfy the needs of customers, it leaves many of their stakeholders, their employees, left in the dust. It is my belief that conscious culture is not truly practiced at Amazon, and this is because a conscious culture fosters love, care, and builds trust between a company's team members and its other stakeholders. Um, the values of accountability and loyalty appear to be practiced through their feedback system and their performance metrics. However, many of the other values um, are not accounted for, and these include integrity, fairness, and empowerment. And it's hard to find reports of warehouse workers, drivers, anyone that's really not in leadership report feelings of empowerment from the company's culture. And all of this is likely a result of the customers, is the customer is right, the that the customer is the center of everything approach, and that's great, that's awesome. However, the needs of the employees cannot be completely forgotten, and they need to be accounted for. And this narrow-minded culture, which Amazon seems to have, is primarily what drives their organizational function. Um, it's all about performance metrics. The following 8 steps based on Cotter's 8-step change model are what are recommended to fix these people management issues. And first is that leadership just needs to straight out acknowledge the poor working conditions that have been reported often. And instead of advocating for punishments or deterrence, they need to advocate for change to stop the problem. Second, a coalition of those who have firsthand witnessed or experienced these problems needs to form under this leadership. Third, the goal and vision that needs to be set is one that solves the problem altogether, not deters it. Again, four, those leading the movement need to directly involve warehouse workers, drivers, whether they've experienced these issues or not, they need to be involved, as well as any and all other employees in the organization that will jump on board, because this change will then be cemented in their minds and will become part of the conscious culture. Next, this high focus on performance metrics needs to be second after all stakeholders, and all stakeholders includes employees and team members. Six, feedback then needs to be gathered from employees to determine if these improvements have actually worked, if they've been successful, and then acknowledging those involved, and then publicly announcing that changes have happened. Next, leaders need to then evaluate other areas that can see improvement and then work towards those. It doesn't just stop after this, it's a continuous improvement. And then 8, um, identification and explanation as to how performance and work condition quality improvements have benefited the organization. The hardest part of this that I see will be those first 2 steps, which is publicly acknowledging the problem and organizing for change. And this is because there is a track record of denial when news accounts come out, and just a refusal to acknowledge the conditions that are taking place. And the reason that these changes will be so hard also is that the structure is not set up to address these issues. The structure seems to create these issues. So I recommend a new subsystem like a task force or an extension of HR that is created with um, an improvement in conscious culture and people management in mind. The lessons that I have learned is that proper people management is really important to building a strong and positive conscious culture. Performance metrics and customer first approaches are good. However, the needs of all stakeholders need to be met. Um, and to do this, I believe that strong communication networks that benefit all levels of employees, that are not fear tactics, should be implemented. It can help with innovation, change, better leadership, coaching rather than overseeing. And then understanding the people in the organization is very important to strengthening and innovating the culture, because while there's tech-enabled ways to mine data, spending time with people always leads to deeper insights. And then lastly, it's very important that the structural design of the organization encourages employee retention, because this strengthens the culture, it lays its roots down, and it will also be very helpful and important when new hires are brought aboard. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and I hope you learned something new.